Welcome to Innovation by Design, a podcast that explores how design thinking drives innovation across the architecture, engineering, and construction industries. I'm Evan Troxel, and of course, joined by my co-host, Candace Kitchen. Candace, how you doing?
Doing well. It's a pleasure as always. Thanks, Evan.
Yep.
Our guest today is Dustin Shafer, Head of Research at Henderson Engineers, a national MEP design firm with over 1,000 employees. Over 25 years in the building systems industry, he focuses on translating emerging technology With over 25 years in the building systems industry, he focuses on translating emerging technology into organizational strategy. He writes about AI, engineering judgment, and technology strategy at his Substack, Design as Decision. Dustin, if you wouldn't mind, just start by telling us a little bit about your story. Where did you start?
First of all, I appreciate the chance to talk with you guys. I always say I wish my story was more intentional than it was. I'm not a good role model. College students, so I kind of just made a series of decisions and ended up where I'm at. And I think the thread is I followed what was interesting and kind of tried to jump on the biggest problem, whatever that was, as I went through my career. So I have an architectural engineering degree. I'm licensed as a mechanical engineer, and I ended up as the CTO up until this past January 1st. I switched into this head of research role. So my career kind of migrated from design work into project management, ran a commissioning team for a while, ran a quality group for a while, moved into standards, and then slowly that crept over into how we work and the tools we use to work, and that just kind of bled more and more into an IT and tech-focused role over time. So I'm old enough. That took a long time, but here I am.
And this move into a research role, contrasting that with your CTO role, what would you say is the big differentiator there? Is it more strategic in nature, or is it just more like you're trying to figure out where things are heading? I'm curious what you...
That is a great question. It's like the question I talk about most often with my peers. So what's happened over time in service industries like building design or construction or even law or accounting or whatever. In service industries, IT kind of grew to consume tools and software. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then operations said, well, I think IT's got this, right? And what IT does over time is make sure software is on and working and safe, secure and scalable and maintained. That's different than applying it to the business.
Yep.
So applying it to the business is hard if you don't understand the software and the different solution methods, the different architectures, like what is this person selling me? How should I be using it in the business? And the handoff between those two is really tough. Mm-hmm. And it's not because IT doesn't understand business or because operations doesn't understand IT. They understand each other. They just don't understand that intersection.
They're kind of in silos in some regard, right? And not only that, but like the pressure of just day-to-day stuff keeps people 100%. In those silos. So yeah, it's hard to cross that line and bridge that.
Operations person, you're going to bias towards reducing costs and efficiency. As an IT person, you're going to bias towards uptime and maintainability. And if you get extra staff, you use them for those things you're biased towards.
Yeah.
And there's nobody biased towards what's the right software to use for the business. So I tried to take a step back and say, we have experts. It's a chance for people to elevate into new roles. And it's a chance for me then to sit at that intersection. And we called it research, but it's really understanding operations, intersection of operations and technology. And how do you leverage tech to do good work for clients?
I was in a very similar situation to that, coming from a practicing architect and then having a dedicated IT department in the firm. And it was exactly as you just described it, which is putting out fires, making sure the printer's got toner in it and making sure the Wi-Fi works and there's a lot. I'm not trying to even reduce it down to just those things, but those kind of service calls happen all the time, and they're always on call, and their phone's always blown up, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the practitioners who need technology to do the practice, and the practice needs somebody on the technology purchasing and decision-making side that truly understands what practitioners need. And so I designed a role that put me into that position so that we could level up because we don't exist to do technology, and we don't exist to, like, we exist to enhance the built environment and to solve our clients' problems. And the practitioners know that part, and you need the tools that help you do that. And so bridging that gap is something that, I mean, a lot of companies need more of. And I feel like the situation that you described, where it was like operations says, okay, IT's got this, that's the prevailing thinking out there, because it's just like boiling the frog, right? It's just happened slowly over time, and then we just accept the situation. And it's actually really great to hear that companies like the one that you're at is actually taking that step back and resurveying. And I'm sure that's happening even more intensely now with AI. And it's like, this is literally changing the practice now. And where are we going with this? I'm really curious, like, to hear. It sounds like that's a big part of your role now.
Yeah, 100% it is. And the other interesting thing is we're an industry dominated by one established player on the software side with Autodesk, and then 1,000 startups. And every startup leads with their technology, and they, like, you need agents to do this. So this is we have generative AI, and it's like, that's not the solution to every problem.
Right.
So you need somebody to sit in between, either to push the incumbent Autodesk to develop a solution that works for your business, or to filter the startup in a way so that you're not just constantly helping startups scale so that they can sell to the incumbent.
Yeah.
And it's not like a criticism, it's just the way the industry works is that there's a lot of noise from startups that if you can't filter that out, you end up just piloting their software and helping them pivot into something with product market fit. Yeah. And that's not good for your business, that's good for theirs.
Give me an example, if you would. Like, what are the questions that you're asking the people that you're working with to identify exactly what they need? Like, I guess get into the details, if you would, kind of help me to understand what you're really looking for.
Yeah, you might be sorry you asked this. There's a lot of details.
And now we pause for Dustin's monologue.
Yeah, do my best. So there are different types of design problems that you go through, like coordinating something in space is a design problem, or running a calculation is a design problem. There's, say, less than 10 categories of design problems. What I'm trying to get people to do is articulate the work they're doing in the language of design problems. And then I'm trying to get our software team to break those design problems into different methods. So if you wanted to put something in space, that's really like a duct connecting a VAV box to diffusers is really a pathfinding optimization problem. So once you get it into those words, then you can look for software that does pathfinding optimization and apply it to that problem in your workflow. But if someone just says, I design ductwork, that the software engineer doesn't really know what that means. That's not the language of software. That's the language of designers. So what I'm trying to get our designers to do and our PMs to do is break things down into these like patterns and say, what is the design problem we're solving specifically here so that I can translate it into a software method.
I was really expecting 20 more minutes. I mean,
I've gotten used to people telling me that was too much.
That was the summary version. So I want to throw another wrinkle into this, which is like doing important things, because I think a lot of professionals nowadays, if you had to just ask, what if I wanted to take your temperature on how much of the day are you spending doing important things versus non-important things, like what would be your percentage breakdown there?
So I struggle with the whole let's automate rote work so that people can do more interesting work. But most people aren't just wasting their time. Like sometimes that's happening. Like if there's sometimes where the job, like I don't know how your podcast works. If I can, we'll say BS. I don't know. If really good.
Perfect.
Yeah, there's some things that are just BS work, right? Like it's not real work. No one cared about the solution. The person doing it didn't care about the work. Like if, like I would say like people treat their goal setting or employee reviews sometimes like that, where like the goal is to get done, not to be good. And it's a shame, but people treat it that way. So that kind of work, sure. Like if you were just mindlessly doing something because somebody required you to do it, that probably can go away. But I don't think that's most work, honestly. I think people dealt with that by not doing it. And so, if this allows them to minimally comply, great. But that wasn't really consuming most of their time. Most people were doing work that was producing something for their boss or their client or their coworkers or something. So, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to say that this will help reduce workload, but it really won't. It will just allow people to explore more options in the thing they were already doing that's interesting.
Are you talking about AI? You could probably put
I think
a lot
just
of different
technology
labels on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that AI helps people build more standard, like classical software. And so there's legitimately using AI to solve your problem. And then there's using AI to just build classical software to solve your problem. And it kind of unlocks both of those. But what it'll do is allow people to do a million iterations of something instead of one, and the quality comes up. It raises the floor on quality. I just think that's way more interesting and really way more common than the let's automate rote work thing. That's
I
real.
think where my question's coming from is professionals today have a lot to do, and it's like you feel busy, but you're not doing the stuff that you signed up to do, right? You're doing email, you're doing spreadsheets, you're doing messaging, you're coordinating, all this little tiny distraction-filled stuff all the time. And so, again, that's kind of a boiling the frog kind of a thing too, right? Like this has creeped up on AEC design professionals over time. And there's a lot of solutions that are trying to address that directly, right? Well, let's all work in one model so we're not lobbing an old model over the fence once a week at best. Let's work in a live model all the time. That's surely going to save some back and forth and coordination and things like that. But there's been a lot of other stuff that's creeped into that scenario. And I'm curious from your point of view, like leading a technology team at a firm, how do you actually take away the stuff that really doesn't matter or deprioritize it? Because it's CYA kind of stuff, and there's all of these boxes that have to get checked, and man, it's kind of overwhelming.
I struggle with it a lot because
Me too.
The solution to that is make it appear as though you cared. So to me, you either care or you didn't. And if you didn't care, just don't do it. Don't outsource it to AI and do a crap job of the work. Because there's a lot of people who want to do that, right? Like the goal is to fill this form out. I don't want to fill it out, so AI can fill it out. And my contention is, well, it's still not filled out. It's just populated with garbage, but that's not done. So what you have to do, like what makes a person successful is the ability to filter and control their work to things that are high value and don't do the low value things. Like some of that CYA work is high value, but you don't have to do it. You can engage a person on your team and say, your job is to do this piece with excellence. If it's something you could outsource to an agent, you don't care about the quality of it, why are you doing it? That's where I always start with people, right? Like that person still is going to have to review it and care about it. Agents can save, or AI can save a lot of the translation work. So if you sent me a model that had really good standards and my company operates with a different set of really good standards, you can use AI to convert from one set of good standards to another one and be that translation layer. But you can't use it to go from garbage to good standards. Like that requires a person with intention and care to set it up on both ends. And I think people want it to do that.
Yeah.
And what you're really doing is offloading the caring to a piece of software, and it's just not going to do that. It doesn't know what you care about. Yeah. It's like a harder answer than AI is going to make all this work go away.
I think like you're kind of identifying a gap, essentially.
Yeah.
What other gaps are you seeing?
How long you got, Candace?
Yeah.
Right.
So the road I started to go down before was that you have to clearly break your problems down and then apply methods to those problems. And then after that, you have to apply an architecture to implementing the methods. And then you take whatever software architecture you came up with and you set up a user interface so that users can interact with it. And there's gaps at each one of those. And the gaps usually come from saying it's technology first, not I'm using this technology to orchestrate this method to solve this problem. So what happens, like the article I'm just writing now, I'm using the, I hate this more meme in it to say like, I hate working in BIM. You should use an agent to have a chat interface to use BIM. And then the thing is like, well, now I hate this more, right? Like, wow, I hate this more.
Yeah.
Because people apply the technology before they understand why they're applying it. And that's a massive gap. So we have all these technology first solutions that aren't aligned with the problem you're trying to solve or the right method to solve that problem. And it's like a very technical answer to say that if somebody's selling you AI first or agents first or whatever, that's probably not focused on your problem. That's focused on this solution was a way for me to fund or gain attention.
That the kind of interesting incentives there at play, right? That it's not using the actual user's needs first. It's putting shareholder value, sound bites out in the news, whatever it is to get attention. You've started to open the door to your writing here, so I want to explore that more and talk about the things that you're exploring in Substack, and maybe even before we get to the content of it, like why are you doing this? It's like you're a busy professional, you've got this thing, but I imagine it has something to do with helping the profession that you're a part of at large.
Yeah, super interesting. So I switched to this research role, and the first thing is like I want to tackle this pathfinding thing. I want to get into it, really unpack how are we going to do pathfinding optimization. And then
can you just explain what that means to the people who are listening who aren't familiar with MEP design?
Yeah, so basically, to oversimplify the profession that I mean, what we do is we put things in space and then we connect them, right? Like you size equipment and then you connect them up so that water can flow between things or air or power or something can flow between two objects in space. It's obviously harder than that, but simple version is there's things and you connect them.
And the reason it's hard is because there's beams and there's pipes and there's all electric. There's all these things inside the wall that we cover up that no one can see, and so then the assumption is, it just works, right? It's all behind there, and it's actually a really hard problem to solve in the real time because this is the coordination that all of these engineers and architects are doing all the time.
It's super hard because you care about the cost. So what's the fewest number of parts? You care about the pressure drop or the voltage drop or whatever. What's the least amount of loss through this system? And then you care about the schedule. So you want things to be simple and use few parts and not have high energy use. And sometimes those are like against each other, right?
Those are opposing forces. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You want to move one thing to make another more efficient. So you have this multi-system optimization. And it's just a super hard problem. And so what we do is we just solve it once per thing and you just go around whatever was there. And unless it's like egregious, you don't worry about it. You just route around what's there and you get it done. And everything's moving all the time. So I started with that. And then I realized I kind of need to explain why I care about this. Because we do it now. So why would it be better to do it a million times and pick the best one instead of just doing it once using the force when you're the designer? And then I kept backing up. I realized there's just a lot from 25 years of doing this work that I need to explain about how we work and going through that. How do you break these things down into what's good for a computer, what's good for human judgment? And I just started writing. And now I've gotten, 20 some odd articles into this. And I just keep unpacking, here's how you could do this. Here's how judgment affects the way you work. Here's how technology affects the way you work. And just keep exploring that interface. So that's how I got here. It was really just, I need to explain a few things. And then I realized this is like a book.
And who are you explaining it to? Who's your audience for this?
So you'll probably at some point ask me about organizational change management. And my audience to start with was our leadership to help us all get on the same page and use the same words. And then in talking with our CEO, we thought, well, why don't we just publish this? Because it would be interesting to also have this conversation with our clients. And if I'm just putting it on our intranet, it's really difficult to share. So I write everything to be sent to clients. I write everything to be shared around the industry. There's nothing secret. It's probably nothing all that groundbreaking in there. I'm just organizing the conversation that I think everybody should be having so that we can use the same words to solve problems instead of just making noise.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious to hear about the topics that you've been diving into recently. So, what's obviously AI? We've already brought it up here, but are there others, or is that the main thing that you're focusing on right now? Because you have a really compelling piece out recently about just, and we're hearing this like from the biggest VC firms in the world, right? It's like this industry needs disruption, and we're going to do it, right? And I mean that's one of the big topics that you've
that was so that one got a lot of attention. I wrote about it was kind of a response to the Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia pieces that said basically the service industry using software is the next trillion-dollar company. It's not a software company. So for the record, totally agree with that. I wrote this piece saying how I agree with it, and then it's funny, even yesterday in a podcast, I listened to the Bits and Bytes one. He interviewed the Andreessen Horowitz guy, and he talked about how I disagreed with his premise and rebutted me using all the logic I used to agree with him. So for the record, that piece is agreeing with him. I think I just...
he just summarized it. He didn't even read the whole thing.
Maybe I need to be a better writer. Yeah. But I agree. I think that is the place. It's like building software to solve service industry problems or to do design is really difficult, in my opinion. I know people are doing it, and they very well may have success. I very well may be wrong. But to me, it's selling the service on the back end of using software that makes more sense. You build software for the brand you have, the way your company works. And then you scale that by selling the service to clients, like selling outcomes to clients instead of selling software to people providing a service. So I'm writing a lot about that.
So it actually becomes really important. Like the data story becomes actually really important, and the data ownership and what you're doing to prepare yourself to be in the position to leverage that you're talking about. And it sounds to me like you guys are doing that at Henderson.
Yeah, we're absolutely doing that. So we went through an exercise maybe a year and a half ago. Well, let me start back. About 4 years ago, we started saying we really need to organize the data from our projects. And so we went through the whole data engineering, data warehouse exercise, created a place where we're funneling all of this data. And then let's say 2.5 years ago, we started building design software to support our service business. And then about a year and a half ago, we went through the whole exercise of, is this a new company? Are we building software to sell, or are we building software for Henderson? And we went through all the different ROI calculations and different strategic looks at it and decided it just makes way more sense to scale our service business using this software than to try and build something that works generically for the industry and
maintain it and take all of those requests of there's going to be bugs and there's going to be people needing help, and that's a completely different business.
It's totally different, and we decided that it was actually less profitable for us probably in the long run.
I'm glad that you touched on ROI, because it got me to thinking, like, okay, maybe some other people out here are doing this, but maybe possibly there's people who aren't. So if somebody is taking the time and the steps and spending the money to do this, what are they going to get out of it? What are they going to see as a result?
So I just wrote a piece about competitive advantage, and I really like the Acquired podcast. I listen to most of those. They're super long, 4 or 5 hour long things, but at the end of them, they dive into this. It's called 7 Powers framework. And they're like, what is a competitive advantage? Like Coke's competitive advantage was scale, right? That each incremental Coke is free, so they can give them away. It doesn't matter. So what I think people need to do is look at their business and really think about what are competitive advantages in the future once everyone has technology underneath their service business. And right now we all say we differentiate on brand and we differentiate on our people, like we have a cornered resource around people. And then we differentiate a little bit around just like experience. And all of those things are not very good competitive advantages in a world where software drives scale economies or network effects, like one client benefits from another one working for you. Or something like an exhaust stream where you could sell the data from doing your main work. Let's say you do design work and then you can sell your data to optimize supply chain, some other thing, right? That allows you to charge less for your design work, and then you're counterpositioned against every other firm, because the more design work you get, the more money you make on this other thing. And the harder it is to compete against you because you don't care what you get paid for the design work because you're making your money somewhere else. So the example there was Google. Microsoft came out with a phone because they wanted to sell Windows licenses. And Google said, well, how about instead of charging you for a license, we pay you to use Android, because they wanted to increase their surface area and get more search revenue.
Right.
So I think what people need to be thinking about is not how do I maximize efficiency for every hour someone spends designing a project? How do I maximize my design profitability? They need to think about, what does this business look like in the future if design goes towards free, right? How do I make money on things that aren't design? And then what's the ROI of that? It's your whole business, right? Like there's return on it, but it's as compared to slowly going out of business because your margins erode and erode and erode because somebody else did this counter-positioning path.
I'm very curious about kind of the business model side of things now that you've brought this up, and if your company has shifted its views towards business model, because there's a very traditional business model, and there's also fierce competition in the building industry to undercut, to be the lowest on fees. And so what you're talking about, like these things are actually weaving together now potentially, if you take the steps to get there proactively versus just watching from the sidelines and letting it happen to you, right, to where you have to erode your own fees and do it faster and do it cheaper. And that is not a sustainable business, right? So thinking about the way that, I mean, you brought it up as like, is this a different kind of company? Are we now a software company that's going to sell software? Okay, no, we're not. We're gonna amplify our services by using this technology. And I'm just curious, did other business model type things shift in this, or how are you looking toward the future when it comes to the longevity or sustainability of your practice?
Yeah, it's a great question too, and the like sister question to that is, when is the future?
Yeah,
right? Like it's not tomorrow,
right?
So you're still running the current business until some point that you like transition. You know, the whole like innovator's dilemma thing. Like, does the new business eat the old one? And at what
right.
point does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that. So our strategic plan is more forward-looking than it is current, but nowhere in there do we say the current business doesn't matter or everyone's doing this wrong or no one wants to buy this. It's just more like, how do you tweak the current business in a way that allows it to pivot into this new thing slowly over the next 5 years or 10 years? Mm-hmm. And like everybody else, we're in construction or in commissioning or in design. Like we have these multiple arms and multiple spots where we touch the value stream as you go through building a project. What we're trying to do is figure out which ones matter. How does technology change the game over time, and which ones are going to matter more? And the lens that we came up with is not super novel, but you just have to focus on driving client outcomes and value for the client. And that's what you're selling. Yeah. So if we could say this building costs this much less, or you get it this much faster or whatever, there's value associated with that. And then you back into like, how do I deliver that? And what technology do I need, and which people do I need to deliver that outcome? Because that's what clients pay for, is the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. One of the original articles I wrote, I showed that, you know, our strategy and pretty much everybody else's strategy 20 years ago, if you literally just write the opposite of each of those statements, that's our strategy now.
Interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would like to read those actually side by side, right? Because it would be telling. And so there's definitely change happening. And you mentioned change management a little bit ago. I'm curious, obviously the things we're talking about here are forcing us to look at change, but maybe not how that actually happens, because I think in a lot of AEC firms, there's leadership who's been around for a long time. The way that we've done it has worked. Mm-hmm. There's value attached to that. And there's all of this new pressure being put on this industry to perform better. Just look at those letters that the VCs wrote, right? These articles, like just saying there's tons of opportunity here because the way that they've always done it, there's a lot of opportunity for technology there. How do you get leadership on board to make decisions that position you for a different future than has been experienced in these long-standing firms in our industry?
Patience and respect.
Okay.
So
start there.
Yeah, start there, right? What doesn't work is fear-mongering or hyperbole, right? Like
running into the room and flipping tables, right?
Yeah, or like this changes everything. Like you can't do that because it doesn't change everything right now. It will change everything at some point. And so what you have to say is what we're doing is working great. This industry is humming along and we're building stuff. And I know everybody says we're low on productivity and we're, behind like hunting and fishing or something in terms of technology. But we're actually doing good work as an industry.
And I think anybody who says that hasn't really put any thought to like to your point a minute ago, like look at what we used to do and now what we do, and they're the opposite. And so obviously things have changed and things have gotten more.
Yeah, we're doing great. And I'm not a technology bro, right? Like I'm a architectural engineer that I went into this because I like buildings and I like solving problems to do with buildings. So I'm focused on that. And I think if you keep working on this helps our business be better, but you're not doing it wrong. We just need to evolve into this. So we need to pivot this thing. And you do the work of explaining the why and the business models and writing the long form stuff and then going through it with people. That helps. That's respectful. And it's not just telling people you're dumb, you're lucky we're here to solve this. It's like, it's working fine. We just need to evolve.
Well, I think you allude to a very good point, which is just that it doesn't have to be perfect. And what we thought was going to work maybe 2 years ago is half working now, and we just have to pivot a little bit. So as long as people are starting and pivoting, then, you're going to be in a good place. And I think the fear probably comes from, okay, where do I start?
Yeah. And then the next thing is like, well, I should do something. And I'm actually not a proponent of just doing something. I know that people talk about that, like just get going and you'll get momentum and it's like the debt snowball applied to your business. And that actually doesn't work very well because what that ends up doing is jamming technology into your current way of working just around the edges. And you end up with like the meeting minute kind of things, things that are like good, but not game changing. Mm-hmm. And if you want to game changing, you have to work from the business model out and say, okay, I really want you to understand what I think this technology could do for your clients. Like it would help you sell your work. And start with that, not with like, let's just go run some pilots and go build agents and use Cowork to move files around on your desk. Like that's fine, but that doesn't really do that much for your business.
I'm curious the kinds of things that you guys are doing. What are you implementing that are game changing?
Yeah. So game changing is a bold statement.
It is.
Well, I think it's more of the slow boil, right? Like nothing we're doing is going to change anything tomorrow, but hopefully everything we're doing is this slow build. So what we're focusing on, where we decided to start is getting better information earlier in the design phase. So the first set of software we're rolling out is really focused around helping people estimate loads, either based on just standardizing the rule of thumb that we use all the way to like historically looking at our data for this type of a project. It would have been this many watts per square foot or this many CFM per square foot, and organizing all of that into something that helps us write schematic design narratives faster and more consistently for the clients. So right now that's kind of a bespoke thing on each project. An engineer will help the client decide what they want, and they put it in a narrative form where they document it for somebody to create an estimate. And what we're trying to do is make that more fact-based and more consistent. And it's actually a really good application to use LLMs in the writing piece, but based on like standard modules of text and context and like standardizing the way that we work up front. That's where we're starting. Because if you ask our clients, most of the time what they want is better answers faster upfront in the project to help them make decisions. They have time for us to be detailed if we had confidence in the answers we gave them to begin with.
Right.
So we're starting with that. We're actually building a software platform that will have multiple products in it. That's just the first product. So that's what we're starting with. We have all these code names for them. We don't have our final name finished yet, but that's where we're starting.
And those shall not be named on this podcast because they are secret. But I do have a question about kind of the nature. You mentioned LLMs being great. You're writing these narratives that are important to establish early on in a project. And the nature of our work is spatial, right? In the AEC industry, it's spatial. And so loads and CFM per square foot, like there's like 2D versions of that, which is the traditional way of working on this, but there's also volumetric versions of that now with the world moving to BIM very early, building information modeling, so 3D spaces. And I'm curious, is that something that you guys are, like how do you marry the planning, the design, the spatiality of what we work on to kind of these LLM, these language model versions of helping you write these narratives?
You know how you can tell that's hard is there are 0 startups tackling that. So everybody...
I was going to say, you were probably going to say, in the time it took Evan to formulate that question, that's how you can tell how hard it is.
Yeah, it's hard.
It was not an easy thing to
Somebody's probably working
conjure.
on it. Most of the ones, so Revit is the standard form that we communicate in. It's kind of like the place where everybody, the standard common data environment we'll call is Revit. Most of the startups who are doing anything spatial are doing it outside of Revit because it's hard to interact with other systems. And so you simplify the problem, you show proof on a system that might be 3-dimensional, but it's not necessarily the model that everybody's working at. I don't know everything about everything. Somebody may be doing something amazing I haven't heard about. I'd love to hear about it. But from what I've seen, most people are simplifying the problem to say, well, for this system, I can show you an automated ductwork routing and it gets a lot of attention, gets everybody excited, or electrical or whatever. And I'm not demeaning what anybody's doing. There's some cool stuff there, but they're not solving that spatial problem. We're not building the software yet to do that. That's the first thing I wanted to start working on the algorithms for that got me down this chain of like, I need to write about our business for a while. So we have some really concrete ideas, some proof of concepts. I think our ideas will work, but that'll be maybe the second or third piece of software we build just because there's more high value, faster stuff that we can build first.
Can you talk about the software development process team? Like, not like in the weeds, but it sounds like you've spun up a software development arm to the business. And I'm curious if that's in-house, if it's contracted out, because more and more people, I'm sure, want to at least look in this direction. And so like a case study like what you're talking about would be just high level. How can you explain?
For sure. So we do have an in-house team. We have an in-house software development team, and we have an in-house data team. And they're affiliated, but they're separate humans. So we have people who concentrate on data, people who concentrate on building structured code. They are all full-time employees. So far, we haven't outsourced any of our development work. And we're building like mostly around C#, but we're a Microsoft company. So we're building a lot of our own code to execute in our environment, interacting with our data environment so that we have like persistence over time and we can manage logins and do all of the things you want to do with a large enterprise user base. It's really difficult to get web apps and stitch them together to do that. Everything's kind of split into these separate systems. So we build all that stuff in-house. Like the users won't know the difference. It looks like professional purchase software. The user interface is good, but we're building it all in-house.
Do you see that team growing over time? It sounds like it, more and more of that kind of stuff, and you're kind of proving it now with your first products. But I assume that, 10 years ago you weren't hiring software developers. I assume. I mean, but now you are.
We were.
Oh, were you?
Interestingly enough, yeah. So we've had our software development lead has worked at Henderson, I think, is 25 years, like a long time. So they grew up kind of building our own ERP. So we built a solid intranet product. We had our own timesheet app. Like we built a lot of the operational software that we used as a company. And now we've migrated over into building design software and more outsourcing. You know, as the industry got better over the last 25 years, it makes more sense to outsource those things than to build them. But a long time ago, we were in on software.
By outsource, you mean like buy, right? Like build versus buy. So something became available that was powerful enough that, again, somebody else is maintaining that code. You don't have to do it, right? There's definitely trade-offs to choosing to build versus buy.
Yeah, to me, you build things that are specific to your business and you buy the other things. It's pretty straightforward once you decide what's specific to your business.
Let's just go back full circle here and talk about the threat of AI. At least like there's like a narrative out there that you better watch out. This is going to eat your services business. But you definitely say like, yeah, that's coming, and the people who should actually be doing it are the people who do that for a living. And so, you know, if you're going to give advice to other MEP firms out there and give them something to shoot for when it comes to like the potential disruption, but also the possibility of who they can become, like what do you think about that?
Most, if not all, of my approaches are for mid-size and like mid to large-size companies. So I don't want to be depressing, but I don't know what you do if you're small. Because to me, the solution of buying software to build your business on top of it just moves your profit margin from you to the software vendor. And if you're good enough to scale your business, you could probably keep your same profit dollars, but the margin just keeps accumulating to the software vendor. And that really scared me. So that's why I wanted us to build our own software for design, because that's where the margin's going to be. Is how do you apply this software in a service business without pushing it all to the vendor? So that sounds depressing, and I know, and I'm sorry. I just work at a mid-sized company, so I solve this problem at our scale, and it scales up, but it doesn't scale down as well. But what I will say is the most important thing you could do is figure out where you're taking risk, because that's what people are really paying you for. You think you're being paid to do design work, but what you're being paid for is to take the risk of being wrong for the design work you did.
Right.
So all service businesses are about assigning risk and someone paying you for that risk because you're better at minimizing the risk than they were. So you perceive it as less of a risk than your client, so they pay you for it. And you just do that over time. And eventually you forget you're taking the risk, but we take a lot of risk.
Yeah.
Contractors take a lot of risk. That's what we're getting paid for.
Right.
So I wrote in one of the articles, like, I don't think all white collar work goes away, because I don't think Anthropic wants, $40 trillion worth of risk.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that is a super important point to put out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you have to figure out how do you leverage the tools that are available to take more risk, and then you kind of arbitrage that risk across all your projects. So you get paid a lot for taking an individual one, and on average, you net out to be right most of the time, and that's your business.
How do you see that playing out when it comes to, revenue, right? So do you see that playing out where you're actually just you're probably not taking on more risk, you're just able to take on the same risk faster at some level? And so then does it mean you're doing more projects because there's an unending number of projects out there, but also, aligned with your expertise and the value that you provide? Do you see it working like that?
It could be either. So you could scale your current risk like horizontally, take the same risk lots of times. Or you could say, well, I now know more about the supply chain or the cost of this or whatever, so I can take different risk within the same thing. I can go vertical and take different risks in the same project and get paid for those. So like pre-construction at a CM firm might bleed into design, because they're saying, oh, well, now I can understand design. Design might bleed into pre-construction. I'll say, oh, I could understand more about procurement and estimating. And so businesses will start to push against each other there. But that's like taking more risk in the same project. You could also say, I'm good at this one thing, I want to do it now 1,000 times instead of 100 times.
Yeah, I think that the danger of bleeding into other places is that the business doesn't look at that as an opportunity to charge for. And so it's like, I think this has happened in AEC, especially on the architecture side. Like the architects say yes to so many things from the client where it's like, no, you should actually get paid for that, right? And you don't, because it's so easy to say yes. And yeah, we have the capability to do it. And we can squeeze it in because we're doing things a little bit faster, et cetera. And this just balloons over time. And so it's like actually having that perspective and saying, no, there's value attached to that, and being proactive about that, understanding that landscape to say we can go into that and we can charge for that, and that can grow our business.
100%. Aaron, one of the guys that works on my team, uses this analogy. I think it's just an amazing one, that so instead of Southwest, instead of charging you for a flight, could just teleport you somewhere, you would actually pay more for that, even though that takes less time. But as designers, we would say, well, that should be cheaper because that didn't take 4 hours. It just took 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's the wrong idea, right? Charging for time. Yeah.
If you charge it for value, that's valuable. You've saved them 4 hours. You got them there faster. That's worth more, not less. But we think about it backwards.
I love that. That's a really good way to think about it. Puts it in perspective. Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Thank you. I'm stealing it. I'm using it now. I mean, it's great to be able to paint a picture like that, right? To say, no, here's why. I mean, that is a value. It is a value to, and it reminds me of the old, the triangle, the three-sided, faster, cheaper, better, pick two kind of a thing. And so, I mean, it's an interesting way to frame it so that people understand. It's like, it also reminds me of like the Picasso quote, right? It's like, ask Picasso to do the thing and it takes 5 seconds, and here's the thing, and it's like, well, it only took you 5 seconds. It's like, no, it took 45 years, right? To get to the point where you could do that. And it costs what it costs, right, to do that. So,
yeah, like don't buy it if you don't want it. Right. Like, oh, it turns out you want it.
Yeah. Well, Dustin, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. We will have links to where our audience can connect with Dustin and also read his amazing Substack articles where he's tracking what he's doing. And I call it showing your work. You're showing your work, Dustin. Thank you for doing that.
I try.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dustin.
We all benefit from it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. This was a good conversation. I had fun talking.